Welcome to another episode of the First Byte podcast, your guide to topics in IT, web design, and marketing. I'm Nathan Cheatham, Director of Marketing at EVERNET, and I'm here with Eric Buhrendorf, CEO of EVERNET. Today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence.
Ooh, AI. That's something that's buzzworthy these days. So there's AI, which is artificial intelligence, and there's a kind of, to us normal people that are not in the industry, they call it, there's a new term, AGI, I think, artificial general intelligence. And that's the holy grail of AI. And what denotes that is a system or intelligence that can be adapted to anything and kind of everything.
Yeah, all right. So now where are we currently? So let's talk about this has been in the news. You know, you got ChatGPT, Bard. Where are we in terms of zero to Skynet?
Yeah, I mean that's anybody's guess. So right now we're in AI, the realm of AI, and anecdotally, last week or the week before, I needed to draft a subcontractor agreement, and in our server, in our file system of the EVERNET business entity, we have probably dozens and dozens of subcontractor agreements that have been drafted by our legal counsel, pulled from the web for quick reasons. You know, a subcontractor agreement, of course you can have all sorts of varying scopes and there are variations to it, but it's kind of the same thing every time, give or take. So rather than look through my own server of, I'm sure we have one somewhere, I just went to ChatGPT and I said, draft me a brief, I think I even gave it a word count. I said, draft me 1,000-word subcontractor agreement, and I gave it some terms and parameters, and I watched it spit out basically a perfect subcontractor agreement in real time. And then it made a template, so it it gave placeholders and input fields for company will here and now referred to as company in quotations, and then I conversationally replied to it when it was done. Okay, we'll populate the information with EVERNET being the company and so as being the subcontractor. And it populated the whole thing. And in fact, we had a team meeting on Friday, which I kind of gave you guys a taste of that, right?
Yeah.
So that is AI, and that specifically is ChatGPT today.
Gotcha. So let's break down a little bit of we're in the tech industry, we're a tech company. What's going on behind this? Because from my understanding is, first, it's limited to the internet up to, what was it, 2011 or 2021.
Oh, you're asking what the data set is training it?
Where is it pulling from? What is this, some storage that it's referring to and pulling from, or how does it know what we want?
So I think we're told one thing and we may not know everything, and it's also changing really fast.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't forget that the internet, the way Google works is it indexes the entire internet. More specifically, it indexes the entire internet, or I should say the web, so far as the web that allows Google to index it. So web managers can actually denote their web pages and sites to not be indexed by Google, and Google will respect that, at least in the search tool that they have, Google Search. And I think that's elective. That's something that they choose to do. So basically, if you have an internet connected web server, it can be crawled and indexed. So anybody can index it. Google just did it kind of first. They didn't do it first, I'm sorry, because there were other competing search products, but they were able to take that indexing information and regurgitate it in a useful way that was leading. So ChatGPT is using the internet, the information that's on the internet. So everything, basically. I don't know if they're respecting the don't index, for example. I don't know, and I'm not sure if they put that on their website or not. I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but we don't know. I don't know, anyways, as of right now. There are, all sorts of other maybe non-direct published databases of information that may be accessible to OpenAI. And what do I mean by that? Scientific journals at various institutions that are only accessible through special APIs or paywall access or something, or some special relationship that Google might have with some of these larger data collecting institutions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyways, it's this trove of information that's being kind of hoovered up. And then now you put a date stamp on it. I know that OpenAI did say at one point that this information is only relevant up to, I thought it was like 6 months or 8 months ago, but you're saying it was years ago?
I think it was 2021 because I had tried to look up, just testing it on information that would be like,
publicly available.
Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Right, okay.
Something along those lines, and it spit back I'm unable to search the internet. I only know things up
I think it may have even said that, right? I
Yeah.
only know up to. Yeah.
Right. So you can ask it who won the Super Bowl in 1971, but it's not going to predict the future.
Well, it's definitely not going to predict the future. The interesting thing about how it works is the information that it has and uses to do what it does is not necessarily like the virtue. Like you can ask it accurate information, but it's actually not a Wikipedia per se. It's what's called it's called a large language model. And forgive me if this is ad nauseum at this point, but the technology basically is predictive text. It basically, you give it words, and then literally based on your input query, it gives you the best prediction of a collection of words in response.
Okay.
So unto itself, it's not self-aware. It's taking an input and giving an output. And the algorithm is take this input and give us the statistical collection of sequence of words as an output, which is like, to us, is completely bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, how do you, we're using our language and speech. Give me a 1,000-word subcontractor agreement with these parameters, and then it spits out exactly what that is. But kind of, if you think about it, isn't that statistically what should come out from that query?
Yeah.
So that's how it works. So it's not information aware, at least as far as I understand, at least today, at least there's all these qualifiers, right?
Well, it's an evolving, we're at the forefront,
realm.
Yeah, of this industry, this technology right now, and we're starting to see the commercial or the end user
application.
Totally. So, and this has been around, maybe not in its current iteration, but it's been leading up to this for a number of years. They've been working on this and different things.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you talk about predictive text, that is a form of AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I do want to get into the business application, and I want to get it. Also, there's positives and the negatives, and I want to talk about both of those. But before we get there, we've seen some growth in this industry already. So ChatGPT, OpenAI was announced a few months ago. Let's talk about what Microsoft is doing, because they kind of dropped this nugget of ChatGPT. Everyone started playing with it, and then very recently they said they made an announcement that they're going to start integrating it in a lot of their tools and their functions.
Yeah, a little backstory real quick. If you don't already know, ChatGPT or OpenAI is the organization that founded ChatGPT. Elon Musk is listed as one of their original founders. Elon Musk, I'm reading between the lines. It looks like Elon was positioned. There was a power play that was happening who was going to control OpenAI, and it sounded like Elon wanted it. And this guy, Sam Altman, I cannot remember. It won't stick in my brain. His name, I think it's Sam Altman, is the CEO of OpenAI. And then Elon took his marbles and went home. And now he keeps kind of trolling Sam Altman and OpenAI and he, whatever. So there's a little backstory. What's weird is OpenAI was a nonprofit organization,
Okay.
kind of that do no evil, kind of hopeful pie in the sky mentality. And then somehow OpenAI, the nonprofit organization, founded a for-profit business entity. And now the ChatGPT revenue streams and products are now funneling through that for-profit business entity. So it's been touched on, but I don't think it's been, I think more is going to kind of come to light as to where the money's flowing, and more will come out as to whether OpenAI, how altruistic they really are. I mean, how can, because they're forming a business entity around it. Anyways, fast forward to today, Microsoft has made significant investment into, I think, this business entity.
Okay.
Not the nonprofit entity.
Sure.
Okay. And now Microsoft, as a major stakeholder in the for-profit, I'm guessing that it's the for-profit entities. We'll just call it OpenAI and we'll figure it out later. But anyways, Microsoft has made a significant financial investment in the OpenAI technology and the AI technology. And now they're rapidly deploying this in all of their products across their 365 suite. So if we still have anybody paying attention, our audience, our business leaders, business owners, presumably many of them are Microsoft 365 subscribers, you're going to start seeing this technology make its way into your Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, your SharePoint, Teams. It's subtle in some cases and overt in others. So they have the pundits and the talking heads like to tease Microsoft because you remember Clippy?
Yeah.
So
I love Clippy.
Yeah, I mean, I did too, but boy, does Clippy get a bad rap,
Yeah. I used to ask him all sorts of questions that he would not know the answer to.
Exactly. Well, that's going to change. I don't think Microsoft is going to lean into that. I think they should. I think it would be I think people like troll Microsoft about it, but I think Microsoft could also kind of own it, and it would be a lot of fun. But
as millennials, we love the callbacks, we love the nostalgia, and having like a little Clippy. And
I think it would be hilarious.
Yeah.
It looks like you're trying to write a letter, So, anyways, but they're calling it Copilot, and even they're actually skipping. They tried a few years ago when Windows 10 came out and their Microsoft Xbox. They had a faux AI Cortana.
Yeah, it's a lot similar to like I can't use the word in your office.
Please don't.
But the Amazon,
the Amazon Echo.
Yeah, Echo, or Google launched Nest, which was
the Google Assistant.
Which was, I think, the next iteration of Cortana. They moved away. Like Cortana was at the beginning of all of that, and it was this cool callback to like the Halo series.
I loved it, yeah.
And so that was great, but
which for all the business professionals here, they probably have no idea what we just said. Microsoft had a really successful game called Halo on the Xbox. And in that game, there was a artificial intelligent assistant that followed this warrior.
Yeah.
And she was always in his head, and it was a AGI. That was AGI, artificial general intelligence. She just was kind of human-like,
Yeah. So that was in that whole wars with Amazon, and there were a few of them, and I believe that Amazon's kind of in some ways won that for the most part.
They won the smart assistant game in the form factor that you have a speaker in every room of your house, or not you, the proverbial you. I literally do have a smart speaker, an Echo, in every room of my house, with the exception of I think the downstairs bathroom, and I think that's literally it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tie this back to Microsoft's products in a second. And Brian and I spoke on this heavily. And there's a lot here that I want to break down, but let me just get back to the Microsoft suite of products. Does that make sense? Because that's what our viewers probably, how do I run my business better with this, right? That's what this podcast is about. So Microsoft's a major investor in OpenAI, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You're going to start seeing this in the Microsoft 365 products and tools. On the end user side of the house, you're going to see a Echo, I can't say her name, Echo, Siri, Cortana-esque tool called Copilot. And I probably should have been prepared to have this on screen because they have a brand and everything surrounding. In fact, I can probably just Google real quick, Microsoft Copilot. and here's what the brand will look like there on the screen.
Mhm.
So this is the ChatGPT-ification of the Microsoft 365 family of products. So what does that mean? It will literally be that Clippy-esque,
Mhm.
what Clippy was supposed to be.
Right.
You open Word document, you start drafting, and if you launch the Copilot alongside you, it will start giving you contextual support. It looks like you're writing a letter. I can see who you're writing the letter to. It's a sidebar right
Mhm.
now. It's a sidebar right now. These are all chatbot interfaces. So you have to chat your inquiries to
Sure.
or type your inquiries to it. But you'll see the Copilot show up on your products, and you'll say, draft me a subcontractor agreement,
Mhm.
1,000 words, whatever. So the exact query that I did last week at openai.com on ChatGPT, I would now do in Microsoft Word.
Right.
And it will index all of the data that we've got on our company server and SharePoint. And
Oh.
it may say something to I could say, like, pull me up the last 3 subcontractor agreements I've drafted or we've drafted in-house. And
Mhm.
it would present those. And then I could say, well, summarize the best qualities of that and give me another subcontractor agreement with this as this and that as the parameters, right?
Right.
So you can use now your own data
Yeah.
to kind of leverage this AI technology. So that's what's coming to the audience.
That's pretty
And our
cool.
clients.
Yeah, and especially when you're talking about like maybe you need to create a piece of content like a letter or a form or something, and you have an Excel, all of your, say it's for your employees, you can say, access this Excel sheet. Here's all of the employees, grab them and put them into this document and make one for each employee.
Absolutely. How about this one? Have you heard of like Dragon Naturally Speaking?
Yes.
So there were products like that were adapted to the legal industry and it was form fill. It was like, try to draft your perfect version of the standard document and then code all the inputs on the document. And I have a lot of clients who did this. I have a lot of clients who didn't do this because of the labor that goes into it.
Yeah.
Not to mention the variation of it. Like they're called pleadings. Some are called pleadings, which is like a type of file document that you draft for a legal case and things. And you would try to code the perfect version of the document with client first name, client last name, client date of birth, client address, like all of those input parameters. And then there was entire software companies that sprung up around trying to then help the attorney populate and spit out a new version of this form for this new work product or client or matter that you're doing, right? All that goes away.
Right.
All you're literally saying, draft me a pleading with this client for this client with this court date with this whatever the input. And it literally it can do it with it's general knowledge. It could use the context of your own data set.
Yeah. And
do it like letter perfect.
Right. So one of the things that I've been seeing is that, especially with law firms, is there's a standard, for forms. Like there's, a specific form. It's created in such a way like that the court will accept.
Well, that's what's so fascinating about it. I'm not, even as you and I sit here and try to muddle through what an attorney's work product is called. And I know one of them is called a pleading, and there's other statute of limitations and all these, right? ChatGPT, the AI knows that already.
Right.
And so if you tell it, like, spit me out a pleading of this, blah, 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 not only does it do it like the words, the written word is what you need, but it also stylizes the document for you.
It puts it in the format. You were talking about the Dragon and like mapping out the different inputs. You could create that with the ChatGPT or the AI so that all it needs to do is just, hey, grab this and input, here's the user information, and it probably would take even less time because it would just, it's already got it. It just drops the thing in, you're good to go, and you print it. So there's a lot of ways that with AI, especially when you're in it's such a structured industry as like law firms, where it's like there's not a lot of variation.
On the healthcare side, today there's a headline: Microsoft partners with Epic to bring the AI to medical records. And so they're partnering with some medical institutions. They're going to start reading the data set. See, that's where the power comes from. All of our company, all of these companies, all of these businesses, we've been digital for the last 20 years, maybe give or take, some even more, right? All of that data is in each individual organization will be able to be read, indexed, and applied. So if you have 20 years of patient medical data, I've been with my primary care physician for 20 years. And so he has 20 years of my medical history. So now if he starts leveraging a EHR, or electronic medical record system, that he can start collaborating with in diagnosing me as I start to age, they're going to have the context of my own records. So not only the shared pool of the wealth of the human knowledge base that's available on the internet, right? And not only the subset of data that is an entire hospital's data set, right? But all of this is going to start being tapped and training the model. And then of course, when you have the contextual relevance of the patient, you're going to be able to provide like the best care possible.
Yeah.
The doctor's going to partner with the AI, and the AI may say, based on the inputs, here's where I suggest you start looking, or if the doctor starts prescribing care and then goes back to the AI and says like, this was what I proposed, the AI may be like, you may have overlooked something.
Just kind of bring us back a little bit of, so we've talked about, Microsoft investing in ChatGPT, what's coming to 365, kind of that evolution, the fact that Google with Bard is a little bit behind, but they're creating something. So we have this push forward. We have a lot of companies coming in and starting to move this industry forward. We were just talking about your personal health information, which there are privacy laws around. We've got HIPAA. What happens when the AI bot gains control of this? And like, is that localized? Is that now into the general sphere of knowledge for this AI? And then could somebody tap into that?
So it's just the experience is going to be the same now as when AI becomes ubiquitous and pervasive. Data will leak, data will be stolen, data will be lost, data will be misappropriated, and all of the business entities that leverage this tool or these series of tools will have a fiscal imperative to try their best to mitigate damage, respect privacy, protect their clients. That's my position on that.
So, we've had previous podcasts where we've talked about cybersecurity. We talked through in one, are we just living in an age where, data breaches are going to be the norm? And, there's an element of
look how unaffected I am when you say that. Like, yes, data breaches are the norm.
Yeah.
We're so many years into this now of data breaches being the norm. It's not going to be the norm anymore.
Yeah. It's a consequence of the movement forward is that, yes, the doctors are going to be able to partner with AI to, better treat you, but also maybe there could be a bad actor that's able to take the medical history of a group or access your medical history because it's been kind of siphoned into this AI mega brain.
Yeah, what's the real danger? So what's the more practical experience that we're going to have here? The doctor or the health provider is going to subscribe to a piece of software that's going to help them provide their service, right? That software vendor is going to license the OpenAI API to leverage that technology and utility. Through regulation, this regulation is almost not even necessary because of the fiscal imperative, right? The customer is going to expect reasonable handling, right? The doctor is then going to apply that pressure to their software vendor. And because of free markets, there's more than one software vendor, so there's competition in that space, which will give them the imperative to do right by their customers, right? Then the software vendor is going to look at OpenAI and say, I expect you to license your technology to me for the use of my software and not siphon and misuse my data.
Yeah.
Okay. All of these stakeholders are going to be able to touch the data, and there will be inherent vulnerabilities and risks and risk exposure to the data with everyone who touches it. And there will be foreign governments and bad actors that will forever be hammering against these defenses and security capabilities to exfiltrate that data. It's what's happening now. It's what's going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
Do we stop using the tool? Do we stop developing the tool? Absolutely not. To risk the penultimate value and version of healthcare that anyone will ever receive in the history of humankind? Absolutely not.
Right.
You just do everything reasonable to grow up with the technology and do everything reasonable and responsibly to mitigate all of the risks when the risks are presented. And that's what we've always done. I mean, the first version of Windows didn't have a username or password. You started the system and you were on it.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until the late 90s that Microsoft and Bill Gates had this whole new security epiphany, and they redesigned Windows entirely around a security construct. But the first version of Windows didn't have security. You just turned it on.
Right.
It wasn't until Windows XP Service Pack 2 that Windows finally came with a software firewall with all the way firewalls work is they broker all the traffic that comes in and out of a network device. And then the firewall can close these ports that are on the network connection. It wasn't until Service Pack 2 of Windows XP that they deployed the firewall and turned it on by default and blocked all the ports.
Okay.
So it's like security is an evolution.
There's security risks, but there's some acceptable amount that we just have to live with for the benefit of the software. Now, moving, the next naysay is the jobs. Does this replace people or does this amplify people?
We have software that we use to run our company, EVERNET, right? And everybody who knows me in this realm, so to speak, knows that I'm like the king of feature requests. I talk to we live in a world where the software that we use now, even from mega manufacturers like Microsoft, it's user-driven software now, or user-driven software development. It's no longer the Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer's Microsoft, where they would make software that we didn't know we needed or wanted, and that was the first generation of software development. No, because it was new, So it was the geeks that were making this software and then saying here, use this, right? And then there was this kind of ego to software development, we'll tell you what you want. 2010, 11, after post Bill Gates retirement, Steve Ballmer retirement, Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, the two new leaders of Google and Microsoft respectively, they just completely upended that model, and they said, no, you see Sundar Pichai talk about Windows and Microsoft 365 on everything. Bill Gates used to say, my kids will never have an iPhone. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's all gone now. It's software everywhere where everybody wants it to be. You know what I mean? And by the way, the software that you want. So we have a lot of software that we use to run our company, right? And I am always engaged with my software vendors to let them know where the software is working and where it's not working, and what features I need in the software to make my people more productive, myself and my people more productive. And no software is perfect, and software is never perfect. It's never gold standard. It's just always in a constant state of evolution. If we talk about one of our key software vendors, our main business management software, which I won't mention, although I think I have a number of times, they tell me, Eric, we recognize that this feature request is valid.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to get them to even say that, but I think I've developed a relationship now with them where they understand that if they validate me, they understand that I don't have a demand that they roll it out tomorrow, because unfortunately it takes a significant amount of human labor to code a new feature into a piece of software and then test it and then roll it out. Okay. So let's say there's a 6 month to 9 month rollout right now on their software roadmap. The roadmap is what software companies called. Like it's where they track the features that are coming out, right? The reason it's 6 months long is because they only have so many people.
Yep.
Okay. Well, ChatGPT can do software programming. The AI, one of the things that it can do and do really well is it can do software programming. The software vendor has already not doubled its workforce in order to half the time it takes to get a feature request out. They've already come to this homeostasis, this balance of this is the level of happiness we're getting from our customers. This is the revenue we're deriving from that relationship, and this is the cost that we're gonna pay for the human labor to produce this product, right? They're not doubling their staff to get me features faster. They're at this level, right? 6 months, 9 months, whatever. Now ChatGPT is invented. Boom. Okay. Now their coders can start using artificial intelligence to code faster. How much faster? Let's just use a simple 2x factor. Okay. Now let's just say ChatGPT or OpenAI allows their software development team to produce twice as much work. Now they're releasing feature requests every 3 months. The value of their relationship with me has gone up. They haven't exerted any significant more capital outlay for human labor. Did that technology prevent them from hiring twice the workforce? I don't think it did.
Well, no, because they weren't going to do it.
They weren't going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
Now the question is, will they lay off half their workforce to maintain that 6-month release window? We don't know yet. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I hope that they don't. I hope that will there be a little bit of both? Will they go to a 4-month release window of new features, lay off 20% of their workforce and call that a win-win?
Or will they see their profits increase because the speed is coming faster and so they hire more people?
The reality is, though, it may not really increase their profit, though.
That's true.
Their value to me has increased, but I haven't given them any more revenue for that.
Right. Unless they're able to say, because they've released more stuff, they can then get more clients.
So it becomes a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So they already have balanced their, like I said, homeostasis of their inputs and outputs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Will they take that utility and capital that AI can bring them to compete more? Because, fortunately they don't have a monopoly yet, although they're trying really hard to get there. There's a lot of consolidation happening in our space, unfortunately. So that's to be seen. I don't think either way. It may happen over time where they may start laying off 20% of their workforce or whatever, and those layoffs will occur. But those lost jobs will find new homes. I mean, that's just how technology always works. I mean, when in the 10-year period that we went from the horse and buggy to the automobile, 10 years, that's all it took. They had stables in New York City. The entire industry supporting the horse in New York City. And in a 10-year period, that all went away.
Right.
So do you not go to the automobile because of this disruption? The other one I use is they used to have in cities, they have the guy who would light all the lamps, the street lamps, and then electricity just overnight changes that. So
creating the efficiencies so that you can do more.
Absolutely.
And that's where if you're doing it and your competitor is not, you're able to take that one step.
Absolutely. And I'm not the first, or we're not the first to coin this here, but I think I read that it's not going to be whether AI takes your job. It's basically going to be like the people who do use AI versus the people who don't use AI.
Yeah. And are you going to be left behind by not doing it?
Right. And you will. And that's all scary at first, but like, don't forget, like, everybody's grandmother here probably uses an iPhone right now. But when the iPhone first came out, there was no way in hell anybody's grandmother here was going to use an iPhone.
Right.
So like our superpower as a human, and this is really getting preachy and philosophical, is adaptability. Mm-hmm. That's what makes humans so cool.
And it's the matter of there's going to be new jobs too.
Entire new industry is going to form around this technology.
And it's already started. We all in professional life, we have LinkedIn, and I've started seeing job opportunities pop up where they say chat GPT prompts, like ability to create good prompts to help, because that's going to be a whole thing. It's almost technical, the level of different details that you can put into a prompt to get what you want out of it.
Absolutely.
We've talked about law firms where things are all kind of very, formatic and a specific process, and the health industry, but a big one is creative, because ChatGPT, the AI, can be creative, and they've even launched to the point of creating images. AI, artificial intelligence.
And I showed that to the group
images,
on Friday's team meeting.
Which, some of the people were kind of scared, or they're like, well, that's going to take away from designer jobs. This DALL-E 2, and what I found, I've got a real anecdote of where I was using this to create getting inspiration for a logo. So I'm a creative, in marketing. The logo process, especially when you're working for a company and everything, it's a little bit drawn out. So what I was able to do was, using DALL-E, I put in a prompt that said, show me 10 versions of a logo for a company like this, utilizing this information, this visuals. And it created 10 logos that, the quality wasn't refined. The lettering wasn't what, I wanted it to be, but it had the elements that I could look at and say, I like that, the way that text looks. I like the way that icon is, and I can start pulling in 10 seconds inspiration that would have taken me maybe 2-3 hours to get to.
It certainly cures you of writer's block.
Absolutely,
that clean sheet moment where you're staring at a white piece of paper.
Right, because different paths can cause paralysis of like, where do I go? What do I do? So this is a quick way to like just cure that, start seeing things that you want. Now, what I did that was the next step in this was I went over to ChatGPT.
This was fascinating when you told me this.
Yeah, so then I put into ChatGPT what I was looking for it to create a prompt for DALL-E that then had these specific parameters to give me an output.
In this context, it's fascinating because you use ChatGPT as like your intellectual team, and then you use DALL-E as your creative team. And so you went to your intellectual colleague, ChatGPT, and said, "Hey, give me go ahead." You said, "Give me the right prompt.
Yeah,
give me an idea to prompt DALL-E to give me ideas on a logo."
On a logo, yeah.
I mean, that blew my mind when you said that.
Right. So, and then what it did is it created better logos because of that, because it knew how to write the prompt in a way that would facilitate.
Blows my mind.
Yeah. And then with DALL-E, you can zero in on like a certain style you like, and then have it iterate off of that style.
Yeah.
So it just becomes this rabbit hole of inspiration that you can go in and tap into. And then all I need to do as the designer is grab the things that I like, refine it, and ship it.
Yeah. I mean, again, it just comes back to me saying this thing is just going to be a human amplifier. Let's put our feet back to the ground. I'm sure you're going to wrap us in a minute anyways. Again, why is this useful to the business leaders that are watching us? You're going to, right now, you probably use a collection of big software companies like Microsoft 365, and you probably use a combination of smaller software companies. If you're a law firm, there's a ton of practice management softwares. If you're a healthcare industry, your particular healthcare industry has its own software. Maybe there's some general EHR software, medical record software. If you're an accounting firm, you've got all of your industries have your verticals, which because it's the industry specific software, it's smaller. So you can tell that the software life cycle and development is not as robust as like a Microsoft, right? Here's what you're going to see. Eventually, you're going to start seeing your verticals. We talked about Microsoft today bringing ChatGPT and AI into Microsoft 365. You're going to see that first, okay? And Microsoft's going to normalize that. Then you're going to start seeing your vertical softwares, your practice management softwares, and these more obscure softwares that you use because it's industry specific. You're going to start seeing them bolt on features that use AI. Our software that we use is a veritable EHR if you think about it, right? All of the support system information that we have that comes in from our clients. I've got 10 years of support data that we've supplied our clients. Somebody comes in with, I got this error message. Our ticketing software in the future may leverage AI to receive that, triage it, and maybe even spit out, hey, client, try this before a human picks up the ticket.
That would be cool. That would be like creating efficiencies for us.
Speed.
Yeah.
I mean, speed, right?
Yep.
Speed is time. Time is the thing. Time is the ultimate currency. So that's what you all are going to start seeing out. That's what we're going to see. That's what they're going to see. Where does EVERNET fit in on that? We're going to try to help implement these systems, support these systems. I just saw a headline I posted on our Finance and Technology Insights podcast that Microsoft is bringing ChatGPT and OpenAI into the back end of Microsoft 365 to help us secure the system. So it's the collaboration with the doctor that I was talking about. A lot of security issues are because of a missed configuration.
Creates like a second pair of eyes almost.
Second pair of eyes. Yeah. Can I geek out real quick?
Geek away.
So the one thing that I want to say before we close, I'm going to let you close this in a sec. We have speakers and microphones on almost all of our devices now. In our cars, the smart speakers that we've talked about earlier today, our phones, our computers even. To me, I really can't wait until they adapt this to a verbal interface. I mean, the text to speech technology is already it's basically perfect. If you are saying a word, it can hear you and understand you. I can't wait to just have a verbal conversation with ChatGPT.
That would be very interesting, and that's something we didn't touch on through this. Is just the conversation mode with ChatGPT. Is yes, you can tell it to do something, and it will go through and do it for you. But then you don't have to give it the same prompt to make changes.
You're right. We didn't touch on that enough. That is what is so compelling about ChatGPT. It's contextual.
Yeah.
From the session. So as you plug into it, you start asking it your first query. You can then just conversationally, as it's giving you output, you can conversationally just keep talking to it. You can say, well, I didn't like the last, and you can use plain speak.
Yep.
I didn't like that last version of your edit. Can you give me another version, but add 500 words to it, or give this or give that, and then it'll give you an output. And you can be like, well, put it in this or put it in that. And like literally you're typing this, right? You've done it now way more than I have. But now imagine having that in a spoken word experience, even if it doesn't speak back to you, right? Because some of the output of an AI may be real verbose. But imagine, and then like the nerd in me is like, if you've seen Iron Man or any of those, I mean, it's Jarvis. You know, and it's so close. It's so close. There. Yeah. Amazon just has to license the API to plug into ChatGPT and then give Echo, I won't say her name, Echo her access to that. And that's what I can't wait for. I can't wait to just have like frictionless conversations with the technology. And I think that's really the ultimate goal that has been the ultimate goal of technology, at least in the digital era for many years. So,
well, if you've been watching this and you've made it this far,
congratulations.
You want to have a conversation about AI, how it can work into your workflow in your business, your company.
Certainly when the Microsoft 365 Copilot comes out, that's the real thing when that comes out. Let us know. We can talk to you about it.
Yeah. So go to evernetco.com and you can schedule a discovery call with Eric and talk through the business use of the products. And we'd be happy to help inform and create efficiencies for you.
Yeah. I mean, even before the AI may be available as a feature, we can help you with your workflows and all of that.
Yep. So thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe on YouTube at EVERNET.co. You're probably watching it there right now. Find us on all socials at EVERNET.co and visit our website.
EVERNETCO.com.